Hello and welcome back to Through the Doorway. I'm your host, Tom,
I'm Dana.
Loki, and Courtney.
and I'm not gonna lie, I really don't feel like being here tonight, but that's besides the point. Just a lot of crap happening. Tonight's episode, we're actually gonna be talking about the White Lady or the Lady in White. She popped up in one of our other episodes where we were talking about death omens because she seems to be related to like things with like the Banshee, Hag of the Dribble, stuff like that. Uh, so I guess what I'm going to do is, first things first, I'm going to ask, have any of us heard of the White Lady before, other than just like ghost stories?
No,
Um,
not at all. No.
I have. So
Uh,
I'm a big Supernatural fan. Basically anything with Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki. But actually the first episode of Supernatural, the ghost in question was a lady in white. And so I thought that was kind of interesting when we decided to do this as a topic.
mm. And I know Courtney was trying to do some research on from Wikipedia, and I think you were kind of I think you were kind of freaked out at first when you learned how many places the White Lady actually resides in, right?
Yes, I was. Very much so.
Let's take a quick look at that list,
Um,
if you don't mind.
okay. Real quick before we go over that,
All
can
right.
I just add something in? Because a lot of the information that Courtney found was on Wikipedia. One thing to note though is that when you look this up on Wikipedia, if you do, you have to type in the White Lady, because if you type in the Lady in White, it brings up like a book and a movie. I guess it's part of some kind of
Mm.
series. But according to Wikipedia, the White Lady or Woman in White is a type of female ghost. She has long, straight hair, typically dressed in a white dress or similar garment, reportedly seen in rural areas and associated with local legends of tragedy. White lady legends are found in many countries around the world, and common to many of these legends is an accidental death, murder, or suicide, and the theme of loss, being betrayed by a husband or fiance or unrequited love.
Huh.
Um, It does go on to say that in popular medieval legend, a white lady is fabled to appear by day as well as by night in a house in which a family member is soon to die. They also appear within photos just before or after death. And these spirits were regarded as the ghosts of deceased ancestors. So that's kind of interesting because the Banshee had something similar. I thought that was really neat when I
Mm-hmm.
read it a few minutes
Hmm.
ago, because there's a theory, especially back in Ireland's culture of the Banshee, that the Banshee was, either somebody who really loved the family or somebody who really hated the family. But a lot of them thought that the Banshee attached to the family was an ancestor.
Now, what would happen if they were like, eh, about their family?
Probably not
Just
much.
curious.
So, going on to where these white ladies were found, contents. If you look under the contents, it'll actually have a list of like all of the countries. So there are white lady legends, and this is alphabetically, so just it's not that one is better than the other or has more. Brazil, Canada, Czechia,
Which is basically
the
the Czech
Czech
Republic.
Republic, yeah. Estonia, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Japan, Malta, the Netherlands, the Philippines, Russia, Serbia, Switzerland, Thailand, United Kingdom of England, Wales, United States of America. They're pretty much all over.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing, like, it doesn't seem like they're really known for South America. Africa also seems to be pretty devoid, and it looks like right there in like the Middle East and China,
Mm.
you
Australia.
also, and Australia, but they're like other than that, the white lady, from the looks of this, it looks like legends of her span about 2/3 of the globe.
Okay.
So she is definitely super popular.
Apparently. It is to wonder, though, how the stories for each one goes. That'd be a long thing to go through, though.
Right.
Yeah, oh
You know,
yeah.
but it makes you
Well,
wonder what the story of each one would
a
have
lot of
been.
them basically look like they're basically just a paragraph. So not
But like you said, it's all either some type of loss, right?
yeah, the one for the Czech Republic actually lists who the best known white lady ghost is. So that's a little interesting.
So my question is, so in each thing, does the white lady actually have a name?
Not always. I mean, they might call her something depending on the language.
Okay.
Like in Brazil, she's called, and I apologize if I butcher these words at all. She's called the Dama Branca or Mulher de Branco, which is in Portuguese.
Hmm. Interesting.
And according to legend, she is the ghost of a young woman who died giving birth or of some sort of violent cause.
Okay. But that is one thing that all the white ladies seem to have in common,
Yes.
is they usually died either some type of violent death or due to some type of betrayal.
Yes.
Brazil seems to think that the ghost is related to the violent deaths of young white women who were martyred by their fathers or husbands in an honor killing.
In honor
The
killing.
most frequent reasons for these honor killings were adultery, whether it was actual or suspected, denial of sex, or abuse.
And it's sad because in a lot of countries,
Ew.
it's illegal to honor kill.
That's ew. So,
So that's what an honor killing is, huh?
Yeah.
for
Huh.
Brazil, it says Monteiro Lobato in his book Eurupes describes a young woman starved to death by her husband because he suspected she was in love with a black slave and only gave her the stewed meat of his corpse for food.
Me.
Oh, that's creative.
Yuck.
Oh, that's nasty.
Well, I know I didn't give you the reaction you were hoping, but... Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather starve.
Probably tastes like beef, so I probably couldn't eat it if I wanted to.
Apparently, there's a White Lady waterfall in Canada named that way because of their most famous White Lady legend.
Huh.
Yeah, they think it's the spirit of a young woman whose soon-to-be husband was killed while fighting against the British in the Battle of Beaufort. Young couple allegedly used to meet near the top of the falls, and the grieving woman is said to have chosen the site to end her life by throwing herself into the raging waters while wearing the wedding dress that she had recently ordered to be made. So a smaller waterfall in the vicinity now bears the name Chute de la Dame Blanche, which translates to White Lady Waterfall. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything I can pull from this that's... not really, to be honest, from what I'm seeing.
The best known white lady of the Czech Republic is the ghost of Parchta of Rosenbark Castle. was a daughter of an important Czech nobleman, Uldrich II of Rosenborg, married another nobleman, Jean of Liechtenstein, in 1449. That's surely a while ago. Marriage was quite unhappy. One of the reasons might have been that Parchta's father had been reluctant to pay the agreed dowry. Legend has it her husband was dying. He asked for her forgiveness for his treatment of her. She refused, and her husband cursed her. This is why she haunts his holdings, which include Český Krumlov Castle, where she had been seen most often. During her married life, she wrote many letters to her father and brothers with colorful descriptions of her unhappy family life. Some 32 of these letters had been handed down. According to legends, this ghost was most apparent in the settlements of Rosenborg, Český Krumlov, a couple of others that I really can't pronounce to name. The story of White Lady is also included in the ancient Bohemian legends. Yep.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff on her.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at some bullet points here, but I honestly don't know what to use at this point.
You want me to take a look at it?
You can take a look at them, but I'm kind of at a loss anyway.
So basically, the first place when I was looking through the books that we physically have here on hand at home, the first book I found mention of the White Lady in
Actually,
is
give me a sec, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
In case anybody's wondering why I seem I'm lost, I didn't really get a chance to read over the research beforehand. So I'm kind of out of the loop this time around. So
Yeah.
I might be stepping back a little bit and let everybody else talk a little more this time around.
We'll do the talking, and you can just throw in your opinions and run the discussions.
Well, I guess that'll work.
You've had some other stuff going on the last couple of days, but the first book I found her in is one we used before called Ghosts. This book Ghosts is about phantoms, poltergeists, apparitions, specters, spirits, and more. It's written by Zachary Graves. So basically what that book had to say was that the White Lady is a legend that appears in many different cultures around the world, which we definitely proved with that list of countries that have, White Lady legends. They say that the ghost is said to be the troubled spirit wronged by her husband or fiance in life, and that does conclude with what the Wikipedia said. She is often dressed in Victorian apparel and usually wearing a long black veil. That's the only place I've seen mention of her wearing anything that wasn't white.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Lady
that's the
in
first
white
thing
wearing
I've heard.
something other than white?
Exactly. That part of it didn't make any sense.
That
to me.
seems weird.
And they're not always going to be dressed in Victorian apparel too. I mean, if it's from that time period.
I mean, aren't there modern day white ladies that are like wearing like a modern day dress of some sort?
Yeah, and I have heard
so.
some of them. One of the things though is I do remember a lot of them claim that these apparitions you see have like long black hair, and I'm wondering if it wasn't that the one that they saw had long black hair on their hair and they just interpreted it as being a veil. Because it doesn't make any sense for her to be wearing a black veil when she dresses in white.
They make it sound like it's like the girl from what is it called? Not
The Ring.
Yes, The Ring. For some reason, my brain wanted to say Grudge. It's like, no, it's not Grudge. But yeah, the Ring, because she's like in a white gown and has really long black hair that covers her face.
Yeah.
And I think that might, I don't know when this book was written, but I think that might be part of it. But yeah, apparently seeing her is a very bad omen and may signify the onlooker's imminent death or the death of somebody close to them. There is actually a cemetery in Easton, Connecticut called Union Cemetery, and it's said to be one of the most haunted places in the state, and it's famous for sightings of a white lady.
Road trip.
Yes, this actually it's not too far from where I went to college up there, so
Loki road trip.
that's interesting. It would take you
Say road
about
trip.
it would take you about 6 to 8 hours, depending on if you get stuck in traffic going past New York to get there.
Yeah.
But you could do like a little 2-day weekend or something. Drive up, spend a night, come back. But
Just
anyway,
drive it.
the this one is said to be. They believe that it's the spirit of a woman martyred in the 1940s. The rumor is that she had murdered her husband and is now bound to the cemetery as a ghost. Others believe the spirit is a woman who died in childbirth and since then has roamed the cemetery looking for her child. She's been described as having long black hair and wearing a white gown. That's the other reason I think that they come across thinking that in a black veil. I don't think it was a veil. I think it was her hair that they were saying.
Yeah.
It does follow with what the Wikipedia said, where a lot of them think that this is a woman who either died in childbirth or it was a woman who was martyred by like a husband or a fiance or I guess a boyfriend if you keep up with modern times of basically whoever would have been her spouse. Visitors have claimed to see her apparition floating among the headstones with a gloomy look upon her face. Drivers along Route 59 nearby have been alarmed to find the white lady in the middle of the road. Some stopped believing her to have been hit by a car or stranded, only to have her vanish. They say that her spirit has been spotted many times over the last 50 years and is the most active spirit in the Union Cemetery. So that I think was definitely, and Connecticut is a really beautiful it's a really beautiful state. So that might be something in the future. And this cemetery is supposed to be like super haunted. There was a lot of other stuff about the cemetery. So that when we get to our part of the show where we actually go out places, this might be a good place to maybe plan like a little weekend trip or something.
Maybe, because
Agreed.
the furthest I've been out that way is Jersey. I've been to New Jersey.
I've been as far down as Florida
Jersey and
and
New
as high up as Vermont.
But
So.
I know it's a little off topic, but I thought it was neat. My brother, while we were there, he took me around the different areas, and he actually took me over to the spot where the real life shark attack happened that inspired the movie Jaws. That was a neat thing to see.
Yeah, I bet.
But anyway, back onto the topic. I just thought,
Yeah, there were 2 other sightings of white ladies that I found here in the United States. The next one I found in our book, Weird Ghosts. Just like we were going over like the Weird Maryland books, they also have a book about weird ghosts. They also have a weird Civil War. So, it's not just individual states that they have. And this one I found on page 40 of this book, and it's called the White Lady Lane Bridge, and locals sometimes call it the bridge on White Lady Lane. But what it is in Pembina County, North Dakota, and what I don't, there's others for this, but this one takes place in North Dakota. The White Lady of local lore was said to be a young farmer's daughter destined for sorrow. And the story is that the farmer's daughter gave birth to a baby out of wedlock. Now, her parents were extremely religious, so back then this really would not have flown.
No, not
They forced her to marry against her will. When the unhappy bride returned home after the wedding ceremony, she found that her baby had died in its crib. And they say that her distress over the baby's death and the thought of having to spend the rest of her life with a man she didn't love was too much for her. So she was still clad in her wedding gown, and she left home to walk to a lonely lane on the outskirts of town. And once she got there, the young woman hanged herself from a bridge. And so many people today claim that if you travel to the bridge at night, you can see the ghost of the girl hanging there in her white dress. And this bridge apparently spans a small creek, and it's between the towns of Leroy and Walhalla, which is near the Minnesota and Manitoba borders. It's only really reachable by a narrow, overgrown road, and this road is off of Route 9 that leads through the Tetralt Woods. And it's known locally as White Lady Lane, the little path that leads to the bridge. Anyone looking for the bridge is going to find it difficult to find it, but locals say that if you take Highway 32 about a mile and a half south of Walhalla, you'll come across the entrance to the woods, because at the Tetralt Woods, there's a state forest there, which I think the woods kind of is part of. But basically, they say that if you go to these woods, to the state thing, you can find the little path that goes to the bridge. What I thought was really interesting about this legend is, I completely get why she was distraught. She came back and found her baby was dead. And if if this dude was if the father was a farmer, he might have been slightly well off, but probably not enough to have like servants or something, especially because this is North Dakota. The North didn't have slaves.
Right. Yeah.
So, basically what it sounds like is she got pregnant, and probably back then she probably wouldn't have even known she was pregnant until, she actually started showing symptoms and had to see the local doctor. And it was a really big thing for them to have babies out of wedlock. That was really frowned upon back in these times. But she apparently, what gets me is they make it sound like they left the baby at home in its crib unattended while they went to the church and forced her to marry this dude. So that right there is negligent, death of the baby, which didn't really exist back then.
That's not just evil. That's Disney evil.
But the other thing that gets me is they forced her to marry the father. She didn't love this dude. Now, the only reason I can think back then that a girl got pregnant and had a baby with somebody she did not love is I'm thinking that this dude forced himself on her.
That's what I'm thinking.
Still Disney evil.
And the parents are so religious that they can't stand the fact that she wasn't married to the father. And in order to not bring shame on their family, they forced her to marry him anyway. And that comes so completely horrible. I mean,
Here's my thing. If it was a case of he forced himself, why didn't the father of her just kill him?
Because he's super religious.
Yes,
Yeah.
but back in those days, he could have killed him for that, and he would have just got a little slap on the wrist. Wouldn't have been a big deal to anybody.
Yeah, but a lot of
Unlike now.
the ones who are super religious, they read the Bible and they interpret it that, you can't harm your fellow man, you have to love your fellow man and all that. And, a lot of them are pacifists, they're nonviolent.
Right.
So they're not like me.
And that's not everybody. I know religious people who can get violent if they have to. And, if I had a daughter and something like that happened, trust me, I wouldn't need help killing the bastard that did it.
Oh, everybody knows that.
Neither would I.
If I need to.
Not at all.
That had to have really hit this girl, because not only did she, from the sound of it, not only was somebody forced themselves on her and put her in that position where she was having a baby, but I guess she was far enough along that, they couldn't really do anything. What gets me is they waited until the baby was born to force her to marry this dude. So that's, I guess, kind of iffy on itself.
Makes you wish they could make a time machine where you go back in time and slap these people.
I really can't blame the chick for hanging herself, though, if this story is actually true. And I mean, I don't know what kind of records the local town kept, but they might be able to go back in records and actually find it, because the 1940s actually isn't super far back.
I say we try to find these records.
I mean, hell, my grandmother was born in 1927.
Mm.
So, I mean, this happened in our grandparents' lifetime.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to find records of whether this was true or not. But
Right, yeah.
hopefully they, dealt with the guy. I mean, that's horrible. Um, Also in the book on the next page, there's another white woman, like lady in white cars. And this is, they say it's, the article's labeled a Midwestern counterpart, but what it is in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. The locals say a section of Highway 66 is cursed by an angry ghost in a wedding, basically by an angry ghost in a wedding dress. And the local lore says that it's haunted by the spirit of a young woman who was struck and killed by a car while crossing the road on her wedding day. The ghost, being angered by the fate that befell her, is said to toy with present-day drivers along this one stretch of the highway. And I don't know what they mean by, toy with. It didn't go into that, but I definitely, actually, this is the one that had that story I wanted to read. So the most popular tale of what she does to these people involved a police officer. So while speeding down the road late one night, he was stunned to see a woman in a wedding dress standing in the middle of the road. She turned and faced him as he bore down on her, and he quickly slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The officer crashed right into the woman. Where did she come from? He asked himself in panic. What's a woman in a wedding dress doing out on the road in the dead of the night? As the thought spun through his head, the horrified cop turned around to look out his rear window, only to come face to face with her ghost sitting in the back seat. Apparently this was one of the favorite tricks of the ghostly bride. Many people say she appears sometimes with her groom in the back seat of their cars as they make their way down Highway 66. Others who have seen her report that she simply walks along the side of the road at night. They have nicknamed this section of the road Bloody Bride Road.
Huh.
What I thought was kind of interesting, though, is that in addition to her, occasionally, not only will you find her in your backseat, but you will find her groom in the backseat with her. And that is the only, I mean, that kind of leads me to not believe it in a way.
Yeah.
Because Lady in White, usually it's, I tell you what, Luna.
It almost sounds like the
The
vanishing
lady in
hitchhiker.
white, here's the kitty in
The
white.
vanishing hitchhiker.
Yuki!
It's a real monster.
Hi, Yuki.
It's the real monster. It's the kitty in white.
This is Yuki. He is a
The
male.
bird kitty marshmallow.
We call him Marshmallow affectionately, but his name is Yuki, which means snow. But yeah, so North Dakota, Wisconsin, that stretch of road in Wisconsin, they both have Lady in White stories. There's one more I found. This one was in weird Pennsylvania.
I don't know though, but that story about her popping up in the back of the car. Tell you right now, if she did that to me, I'd look at her and go, "I'm not an Uber. Get out."
I mean, the Lady in White sightings, a lot of them, they'll see her like walking or standing on the side of the road. They'll ask her if she needs a ride, and she'll like get in the car, or she'll appear in the back seat, or she'll disappear from the back seat. That's pretty common in Lady in White stories. What isn't common, and I've never heard of except for that story, is the groom or significant other somehow being involved. I've never heard of one where the groom would also be involved.
Well, it makes me wonder, how old is that white lady supposed to be? I mean, is she so old that her groom may have eventually passed away and they reunited in the afterlife?
I doubt it. She was pretty young when she was set to get married.
Well, I'm just saying, do we know when she died?
It didn't specify a year.
See, that's why I'm saying...
Now, the fact that this happened on Highway 66, we might be able to, do a Google search and see if it comes up with, any kind of, I guess, big stories about, like, a bride who was struck and killed. So, I mean, we might be able to do some research and, like, prove or disprove when this one happened and if the groom also died.
You can go.
He wasn't originally mentioned in the thing. It was just the fact that she was crossing the street and got struck by a car and killed. That was mentioned in the beginning of the article.
You see, that's what I'm getting at is it's possible that that could have happened back in the 40s or something as well. That's why I was saying.
Well, this one mentions police, and I know that they did have police, but I also know that back in the 40s, I don't think cars were still quite as popular as they are now. So I can't see them, and they wouldn't have gone fast enough for a cop to be, like, zooming down the road.
Well,
like,
I was just
speeding.
trying to think of a way that could have linked the groom into it, that's all.
This might actually be the most recent, history-wise, of the White Lady stories. Because, I mean, this makes it sound like it was probably sometime in the last, like, 30, 40 years that this incident happened.
Okay.
I can't see cars having evolved enough for them to be speeding, and especially it mentions asphalt. And I know that a lot of roads weren't made out of asphalt, like, super long ago. It was really only in our parents' era, like, going from the grandparents growing up, that they really started actually paving streets.
Yeah, back in the day, I think they either used gravel or they would actually brick streets.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, like, up here in Annapolis, the Inner Harbor area, like the historic district where the harbor is, it's really popular. Oh, we just lost their video.
Uh-oh.
It looks like he cut off. He's not part of the thing. Wait.
Uh-oh.
You guys still there, Loki, Courtney? Oh, no, it looks like we lost them. We'll see if they come back. But yeah, it's, here in the Harbor District up in Annapolis, here in Maryland, they, a lot of it is bricked. The road
Right.
up there. And it's historic, so they won't change it unless there's damage to it. But they, a lot of those roads, they don't even let you drive on up there because they want to keep it as undamaged as possible.
Right. Wonder why it dropped.
Well,
We'll just keep going anyway.
yep. I will hold off really quick on our weird Pennsylvania story
Alright.
until we see if they're going to join. For now, we can just go ahead and go through some of the Wikipedia stuff. So let's see. For Estonia, I'm not even sure where Estonia actually is.
I'm not sure.
I'm not familiar with that. I might have to look that up. But the most famous White Lady of Estonia is said to reside in Haapsalu Castle. According to legend, a canon fell in love with her, so she hid in the castle disguised as a choir boy. But she was discovered when the bishop visited and subsequently immured in the wall of the chapel for her crime. To this day, she is said to look out of the baptistry's window and grieve for her beloved man. According to legend, she can be seen on clear August full moon nights. That's kind of interesting that you can only really see her a specific time of year and if there's a full moon.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, once in the month of August, you can see her.
Looks like it
Courtney's
reconnected.
back!
Sorry, we lost internet on our end.
That's cool.
That's okay.
We're just
Oh.
going through
Surprise!
we're just going through a couple of the Wikipedia things while we waited for you guys to reconnect.
Yeah, the crazy thing was I could hear you guys somehow, but you couldn't hear us.
That's
Like
cool.
I actually texted your phone to let you know
my
what
phone is on
happened,
silent.
but I guess it's not
Yeah.
near you.
No,
It's
our
here,
phones
it's
are
just on silent.
silenced. That's
Oh.
why.
Sorry,
Gotcha.
Lena. I did not mean to step on the baby.
She went that way.
I hit her with my foot.
Hi, Yuki.
So,
She's still that way. Give me
Come here, Luna.
kitty. Monster!
Luna!
Hi.
My monster.
This is the baby of the family.
My,
This is Luna.
my monster.
Her and Yuki, even though they don't look alike, are from the same cat litter. We have these cats that are living in our cellar somehow. And they keep having babies, and we've been catching them and finding them homes. These two are just two that we decided to keep. Luna here is the runt of her litter, so chances are if we didn't take her in, she wouldn't have made it. Normally, she's pretty lovable, but today she's being a little brat. She keeps digging her claws into our feet and our hand if we leave them like hanging down at our sides long enough.
Who are you kidding? She knows she's daddy's little girl. Look at her. You see her
They
fighting.
both love Tom more than they love me, and you know that's okay. He's home all the time being disabled. I'm getting ready to go back to work. So it probably works out for the best.
What you doing?
But she's adorable and she
Aw,
knows it.
okay. Go on. Go get your brother.
He is a cutie.
There you go. Get your brother. Oh.
Get him, Luna. Get him.
Right?
Get that little marshmallow.
Back when they were both still about 8 weeks old and all that, he would really get her. Because Yuki would like jump on her and he would target her head or her stomach, which, you know, she's got a hernia. And it doesn't seem to bother her or hurt her or anything, but if he brings his full weight down on it, I'm sure it'll hurt.
Oh, probably.
You know, but now she's a little bit bigger and she's learned to give as good as she gets when it comes to them fighting with
Pretty
each
much.
other. She starts half the damn fights. She wins half of them too.
That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the white lady. If we look through the Germany section, it says that stories of white lady ghosts are associated with residential castles of the Hohenzollern family. Two persons are supposed to be the historical basis of a ghost haunting the Plassenberg. According to legend, the Countess Kunigunda of Orlamunde murdered her two children because she believed this could enable her to marry Albert of Nuremberg, who married Sophie von Henneberg instead of her. She became a nun and died as an abbess of the monastery Himmelskron. A white lady ghost reportedly appeared in 1486. 1540, 1554, and 1677 as a harbinger of misfortune. A variation of the tale holds that the White Lady of the Plassenberg is the unfortunate widow Bertha of Rosenberg from Bohemia, overthrown by the heathen Parchta. Gee, that name Parchta is very familiar, and I'm wondering if it is the same woman.
The name? From what? Something you watched?
No, Parchta was the name of the other white lady we
Really?
spoke about. The one before. Let's see. Parchta, also commonly named as Parch, and other variations, was once known as a goddess in Alpine paganism in the Upper German and Austrian regions of the Alps. Yeah, the other one that had Parchta was, I'm pretty sure that was the Czech Republic.
That was the Czech
It
Republic.
was the
Yes.
Czech Republic.
Huh.
So if they were close, they might even be talking about the same Parchta, you know?
It's
You
possible.
don't know. That's interesting. A white lady ghost, said to be a harbinger of death and misfortune, was claimed to be seen in the Berliner Schloss in 1598, shortly before the death of John George of Brandenburg, and again in 1618, 1625, up until 1940. Castle is the residence of the kings of Prussia. Stories associate the White Lady with several historical figures, most notably Anna Sido, the paramour of Joachim II of Brandenburg, which was the father of John George, who bore him 2 extramarital children. She was imprisoned in the Spandau citadel after Joachim's death by John George, despite his promise to care for her. She died in 1575 without regaining her freedom.
Huh.
They also have a couple of other ones for Germany. Castle of Dusseldorf, Friedlin in Brandenburg, Barg Lanek is the site of a white lady ghost. And then, of course, you've also got one in Westphalia. So, yeah, Germany apparently has a couple of castles and, like, I guess what they would be considered historic buildings, like parishes and whatnot.
Yeah, we're back on.
That seemed. Hungary differs in the fact that they think that they claim that in mythological wise that the White Lady was the ghost of a girl or young woman that died violently, usually young women who committed suicide, were martyred, or died while in prison. They also believe that the ghost is bound to a specific location and is often specified, like identified as a specific person. And an example they gave was Elizabeth Bathory, and she's actually the one who became known as the Blood
Countess.
So, I think in the future we might actually do an episode where we kind of look into her history. We can also look into the history of, like Vlad the Impaler, who is known as Dracula, because I know that a lot of people, they go hand in hand. So that'll definitely be something interesting that we can do. So here's an interesting one.
You cannot eat my computer cords. They are not edible.
In Ireland, in Charles Fort, there is a story of a white lady who is the ghost of a young woman that died on her wedding night. Her death was a suicide, which followed the death of her husband at the hand of her father.
Oof.
Yeah, that's, I wonder what the husband did that the father killed him on the wedding day and then she killed herself that night.
I'm not going to ask you to repeat. I apparently missed it because I was saving my computer from Luna. She was trying to eat the cords.
Ireland has a notable white lady.
Okay.
They say it's a woman who killed herself on her wedding night. Her death was a suicide, which followed the death of her husband at the hand of her father.
Yeah, it's typical Irishman.
So somehow, between them getting married and them going to wherever they were spending their wedding night, the husband did something to piss off the father.
Or maybe the father didn't like him all along.
Maybe that could be. He could have just been waiting for her to marry him so she could get his assets.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give any names, so you can't really tell, like, who they were. Oh, this is actually pretty, it's kind of interesting. So in Japan, in Japanese folklore, there's 2 types of ghosts that are frequently depicted as women with long black hair and white dresses. They say that these spirits commonly appear in the condition they died, And in Japanese culture, people are buried in white kimono. And these descriptions are what spawned the films such as The Ring. And
There you
it's
go,
a
Tom.
typical description of ghosts in East Asia. You know what's interesting about this is the name of the two types of ghost. The Onryo
Mm.
and the Yurei.
Phasmo!
Yep.
So that's definitely interesting.
And just so you know, the Yuri are spirits who are banned from a peaceful life, and the Onryo are wrathful spirits.
So
Sounds like those two would get along great in a club.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of research was done when they made the Phasmophobia game, but I think it's more the fact that that's a random generator when it comes to names and stuff of the ghosts. Because I do remember either us playing the game or watching streamers who play that game. And they've definitely had both Yureis and Anreyos, because those are two types of ghost classifications in the game. But they have definitely had them where they've been male ghosts.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if it's just a random generator that does that for
I'm
the
pretty
game.
sure it's a random generator because we've had banshees that were guys.
Yeah, so
You know what I mean?
but it is kind of interesting that
I mean, there is
you're-
a male equivalent, but it's well, not exactly equivalent. It's actually the opposite.
yeah, and
when it comes to a banshee.
you can definitely tell that these kind of creatures, like these kind of spirits or death omens, have become so popular because you've got Phasmo, Ghost Hunter, Ghost Chasers. There was one that renamed itself on Steam, but there's a lot
Ghost
of
Hunter Corp was what it was. They changed it to Exorcism
Aren't
Inc. I
those the
think.
shows that your mom used to watch?
Yeah.
but there's a lot of Ghost Hunter games that have become really popular on
Newest one I think is called Ghost Watch or Ghost Watchers or something.
I think it's Ghost Watchers.
I don't know. Somebody's been trying to get us to play it, and I just don't know.
But yeah, there's been a lot of these games that have been popping up, and they all have a pretty set ghost list, it looks like. A lot of them have like Phantom or Wraith or Spirit, but then they go in and they have, Banshee and Yurei and Onryo and a bunch of the other ones. So I definitely think that it's really interesting that these have become so popular lately. It looks like a lot of these, like if we're looking at the Wikipedia, it looks like a lot of the White Lady stories for the different countries, a lot of them have to do with palaces or castles.
Can't say I'm too surprised when it comes to that.
Malta says that the White Lady is the name of a female ghost that lives in the Vardala Palace, which is in the small forest of Busquets, which is in Rabat, Malta. The legend says that many years ago, the niece of the Grand Master was engaged to be married to a suitor whom she did not love. Father told her she must always do as her fiancé said. Wedding day was soon upcoming, but just before the ceremony, she committed suicide by jumping off a balcony. She was wearing a wedding gown when she died. This is why she is still known to this day as the White Lady. They say that she haunts the Vardala Palace, and many people who attend the August Moon Ball confirm that the apparition does appear in the palace. They have another Maltese legend that says the White Lady of Medina was killed by her lover after being forced to marry another man. Many have claimed to see this spirit always after 8 o'clock in the evening, usually appears to children under 8 years old, heartbroken teenage boys, and elderly men. While she tells the children goodnight and bids them to return home, she advises the teenagers to find another or to join her and become part of her shadow, which was the word for her ghostly followers. And she also attempts to lure elderly men into her shadow. This is the second one I've seen, though. The one in Germany also made a comment about you could only see the white lady spirit on the full moon in August. This other one mentions, the August moon ball, which would have, I guess, been a full moon ball. So that's kind of interesting that those two European countries have a white lady ghost that you really can only see the one time of that 1 month of the year.
Apparently August.
Yeah.
Which is what
Yes.
we're in now.
Yeah, which means people there should be seeing her soon. I don't know when the full moon this month is, but, anybody
There's
who...
a way to contact any of them to see if they actually see her.
I'm not sure. That's probably something we might be able to look up, because I'm sure that legend seems to be a big deal over in those countries. So you might be able to check on YouTube and maybe see if people specifically go to these spots and film on the full moon, like hoping to catch a glimpse of her.
Maybe.
So
And then we would get our story of somebody that's actually seen her.
yeah, maybe. Alright, so before we go back into more of the Wikipedia, let's go ahead and cover the last one I found here in the United States. This one is from Weird, Pennsylvania, so it's actually not super, super far from us. And this lady, this one was the White Lady of the Buckhorn. This happens in Altoona, Pennsylvania. They have a spectral hitchhiker up the Wapsananak Mountain. Yeah, if I mispronounced it or butchered it, I'm sorry, but this mountain this name is a nameful. She's most often called the White Lady of the Buckhorn, which is a nearby mountain and much easier to pronounce. So, yeah,
Good for you.
apparently the own locals even thought that mountain name was a mouthful. Anyway, apparently there used to be a resort at the top of this mountain. And so, you could only get up to the resort by this treacherous stretch of road that they call the Devil's Elbow. And so the legend...
What called that?
Yeah. Any place called the Devil's Elbow? Like...
I'd be more scared if it was called the Devil's Anus.
Yeah, this is true.
Killed him near rectum. Oh!
You gotta think though, a lot of mountains,
I'm going
anybody
there.
that actually travels like over or through the mountains, there's usually a lot of like really narrow, bendy roads. And that's usually the most treacherous roads in the whole like country is the ones that happen near these mountains. So the fact that they name them things like Devil's Elbow really doesn't surprise me. Anyway, the legend is that a pair of newlyweds met their deaths here on the way to their honeymoon at the resort. Since then, a woman in a white dress has been seen in the area searching for something by candlelight. The story suggests that she's looking for her missing husband, and they say that his body was never recovered from the accident. Like, apparently they found hers, but they never found his. So the locals think that what she's doing is she's going out there and she's searching for her husband's body. Some reports say that she only stops cars driven by young men, and that once she sees that they are strangers, she disappears. Others say that she hitches a ride towards the summit, but then she disappears from the car when you get near the Devil's Elbow. The resort is gone now. It's not there anymore. And they have television and radio equipment still on top of the mountain. Everything else from the resort up there was apparently taken down and like disposed of. So there's no like actual buildings or any of that kind of stuff still up on the mountaintop. Technicians sometimes go up there to service the equipment, and they go and they say that they see her sometimes. And a few years ago, apparently one technician offered her a ride. She got into the back seat but did not say a word, even though the driver tried to make conversation. He could not see her in his rearview mirror though, so he turned his head around and she was still there. And then after they passed the Devil's Elbow, he looked again, only for her to be gone. So apparently, she would either start towards the bottom of the summit, and they would try to take her up to the top, and she would disappear when they got near the elbow. Other people basically say they saw her up at the summit, and when they tried to give her a ride down the mountain, she also disappeared at the elbow. So she's pretty centralized in the fact that I guess about 75% of all sightings of her happen near this stretch of the road called the Devil's Elbow.
Okay.
That's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, we probably could look up the mountain and like find reports about this accident, because something like that would have like been like highly recorded news-wise for like the local papers and stuff, you know, because that's the type of thing that reporters freaking love, you know, newlywed couple dies on way to honeymoon, you know, whatever. And especially the fact they never apparently found the husband's body. So, I mean, that chances are that, especially being up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, the body was probably disposed of by like bears or something.
That's true.
But, you know,
Thing
because
is,
I
you
mean,
would think the one that they didn't find would be the one doing the haunting. That's just a little weird.
you would think so?
that.
Most of the time, it's the ones that aren't found doing the haunting. You know,
Now,
so if I find that kind of weird that they found her body.
yeah, and it's weird because, I mean, on one hand, whichever one saw the other die, they, at that point, if they themselves die, they might not hang around. So it might be that she died first in the accident. The husband might have seen her die. And so when he died in the accident, his spirit didn't hang around. It just passed on to the afterlife.
Maybe.
You know, if she died last, then, I mean, if she died first, rather, she'd have seen that he was still alive when she died. And so she might think that he survived the accident. And, you know, if she was by her body when they found her, she could have heard them talking about how they didn't find the husband.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that his body wasn't there or whatever. And so in her mind, if there's no body, he's alive and she has to find him.
Maybe.
That would kind of make a little bit of sense.
That does. I agree.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that the white lady stories I'm finding in these books, the one from North Dakota and the Highway 66, and even this one here in Pennsylvania, I'm sure that there's others like there's probably so many of them for the United States. This is such a big country.
Right.
These were just the 3 I found in the actual books I have here on hand. But the interesting thing is that they all happened recently enough that with a little bit more research online, I probably could actually find out the details for the story and see whether they actually are true or not. And that might be something I do. I might do some research and see if we can prove some of these stories, and that could be something we talk about another episode.
Perhaps.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would definitely be an interesting topic.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we go through some more on the Wikipedia? We're down, I've just been going down the list country-wise, so we're now down at the Netherlands if you guys want to take over for a little bit.
You want to pull up the wiki page?
Right here.
Up, go. Down. Netherlands. There you go. So in the Netherlands, and I apologize if I butcher this, the white women are called Wit Wyven.
Wyven and Wit.
Um,
White
I think that might actually be Wit Weavin.
Witch Weaving
Yeah.
okay. Are mythical creatures of Lower Saxon origin, and so most known in the eastern and northern parts of the Netherlands. Sometimes referred to as white maidens. They can have a benevolent or malevolent nature, so they could be good or evil. Often related with witches or ghosts, they show many similarities with the banshee, the fairy, and the elf. To piggyback off last week's topic of death omens.
Mm-hmm.
Understood as malevolent beings, they abduct or switch newborns, abduct women, and punish people who have mistreated them. Not somebody I'd want to run into.
Yeah, if
As
these are
malevolent,
women, though, it kind of makes you wonder. I mean, I could kind of see switching newborns. Because, especially if they died in, like, childbirth or something. But
Right.
why would they be abducting women? That's a little odd if they're women themselves.
that's a good question.
I mean, a lot of the legends say that white women are people who, like, died violent deaths, but usually it's at the hand of, like, a spouse. Now, if another woman killed them and they came back, I mean, I guess that could kind of explain why they would target women. It's just not, I've never really heard of one that targets women specifically.
Well, it might
Right.
have something to do with the fact that maybe their spouse cheated on them with another woman or something like that, so they see other women kind of as unfaithful. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe
Or it
that's
could
why.
be that they were killed by another woman and abduct women with similar features to
Yeah,
their.
something like that.
Could be.
So there is a story. The Scheinfeld's Boston Forest is also home to another white lady story. Archival evidence suggests that the forest was once home to a castle farm that was built in 1396. Again, castle.
Ooh.
In the 17th century, estimated at 1667. The site was burned down, killing the daughter of Lord Lambert Reinhardt. This historical event has spawned a few variations on a white lady ghost story based around the death of the woman who burned with the castle farm. The most common versions of the tale involve the women having two fighting lovers, or of the site being burned down on her wedding day by a jealous nobleman. Again, the wedding day. So it's always wedding day or uh castles or palaces.
Yeah.
Um, However, all versions claimed out that she now wanders the forest like a ghost in a long white dress. Some saying she only appears at midnight, and others saying she only appears on nights of the full moon. The sites of the former castle farm is referred to as uh, Lambdendam, after the ghost who supposedly haunts the area. The term is a Dutch adaptation of the French La Madame Blanche, and it is now protected as a cultural historic site.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, this is like I've never really seen where the Lady in White has specific requirements met to see them, but this is the third one now that we've seen off the Wikipedia that mentions full moons. So
Yeah.
it's looking like that might have some kind of significance.
It might.
I wonder if there's a relation to werewolves somehow.
Not really. I mean, a lot of things say that the full moon is like a power symbol, basically. Werewolves, witches are also supposed to be more powerful, I think, at the full moon. There's a lot of like mythological creatures where they say that the moon holds power, and so the fuller it is, the more access to that power the like spirits and things have. So I think that might be what's being related
Yeah,
here.
there's a lot of supernatural stuff that's linked to the lunar cycle.
Yeah, we might have to cover the lunar cycle and see like what research says people think about like the moon in conjunction with like mythology and stuff like that. That would be kind of interesting to know.
Mhm.
I'd be interested in that topic.
Yeah, same here.
So next it looks like we've got the Philippines.
And I was going to mention the Philippines piggybacking off the stories of those that haunt roads, but we lost internet connection. But in the Philippines, white ladies are also known as caparosa, are popular ghost story topics, often used to convey mystery and horror to young children.
Mm.
The most well known is the White Lady of Ballet Drive in Quezon City. According to legend, she is the ghost of a long haired woman in a white dress who was killed in a car accident. Mostly seen by taxi drivers working a night shift who are asked for a ride by a beautiful woman. After picking her up, the cab driver looks back and sees her face full of blood and bruises, which causes him to flee in terror. Other sightings have been from people driving alone who see the face of a woman dressed in white who quickly disappears. And because of this, she is blamed for several car accidents. And although this legend may have been made up from a reporter in the 1950s as a combination of the stories she heard from around the area.
Now see, that's definitely kind of interesting because a lot of the legends of the White Lady, a lot of them actually do take place on roadsides.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll be usually where like they'll hitchhike, and I know in the first episode of Supernatural, I said that the first ghost they covered was a white lady. What it was is she was this ghost was like hitchhiking along the side of the road, and when people would stop and ask if she needed a ride, she would only appear and stop where it was like a single male in the car. And if they agreed to give her a ride home, um, they would drive her home, and once they got there, she would kind of like start putting the moves on them. And if they seemed interested and would, want to like cheat or have relations with her, she would then kill them for being unfaithful.
Oof.
And so, I mean, that I think seems like they took the most brutal parts of all the legends and they just kind of like shoved it in there for, I guess, the story plot aspect of it. But it doesn't change the fact that when you go through and you look up this stuff, you see a lot is actually like a lot of them take place on roadsides. A lot of it has to do with people saying that these figures are hitchhiking.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them stop and pick her up because
And you-
they see these women and they look like they're battered and bruised, like they're in dire need of help. Others have claimed that they pick them up, and other than the fact that they're in a long white dress or like a nightgown or something, they seem perfectly fine. But then once they get in the car and stuff, then the appearance changes, and then they basically take on a more like beaten up appearance.
Yeah.
But a lot of them have actually been centered around like parts of the road, so that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how many of those car accident ended with, "How much have you drank tonight, sir?"
I swear this cat is gonna give me a heart attack one of these days.
Luna just spooked her.
Oh,
Oh, jeez.
I'm sitting here looking at this article and she just freaking like grabbed hold of my foot.
She says it's playtime.
It is not playtime.
She thinks it is.
Let's see. So Russia, they call them the Maidens of Yuli. It's an East Siberian legend of the West Buryat people. Let's see. Legends tells about a young lady who did not want to marry. She kept running away from her husband, who treated her disrespectfully and locked her in a black yurt instead of a traditional white one. She then hanged herself in a barn after singing and dancing at someone else's wedding for 8 days and 8 nights, feeling unwanted and unloved. After her death, she became a spirit. She joined other spirit maidens, some 350 of them, who haunt fiancés on their wedding day, bewitching them with their beauty and dragging them to the netherworld.
Yeesh.
First off, I think it is physically impossible for somebody to sing and dance for 8 days and nights straight.
Without collapsing from exhaustion.
I
Oh,
mean,
no,
you can go a while without food and water, but
In
to
medieval times,
go,
there was a dancing plague that went around
Yeah,
Oh
where
yeah, I
people
remember hearing
danced
about
until they
that.
died.
yeah, yep.
so this might be a take on that.
Could be.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then Serbia, this one will probably be kind of related because, you know, it's not too far off from there. In the village of Kroprivica, there is a legend about a ghost of a woman in a wedding dress that walks around at night scaring people. Most commonly referred to as the dead woman in white. There are 2 stories about the death of this woman. The first states that she died in the 70s in a car accident while going on her honeymoon. The second states that she hung herself after her fiance left her right before her wedding. Apparently is also seen stopping cars on the road. In August of 2011, 2 brothers from Bor, inspired by the legend of the woman in white, decided to prank drivers on the road by having one of them put on a wedding dress and approach drivers while the other filmed it. Incident was reported to the police, who managed to identify the brothers. However, they couldn't be charged with anything since technically they didn't break any laws.
Crazy.
I mean, first off, you gotta be careful doing something like that. If you're gonna prank people, then, you know, that's one thing. But you're doing this on a stretch of road, and people get very, like, kind of, like, not terrified, but they get real, like, antsy and scared. Especially
Right.
if you're, I mean, in order for you to not be obvious as a male, you'd have to do this later at night when visibility is not the best.
Right.
And so if you freak somebody out enough, they could turn to violence before you can even get out. Ha ha, you're being filmed. This is a joke.
Well, not to mention they could accidentally get hit by that car.
Right? You're running the risk of being hit by a car, of being ran over, of possible violence. And then you gotta figure, even though you're filming it and they can't, the police couldn't charge them with anything because they didn't break any laws. How many, I mean, were they telling people that they were being pranked? Because not everybody is gonna take that, you know, the right way. Some of them might be like one of retaliation. That's a very dangerous thing to do, like going after people like this and trying to prank them,
Yeah.
especially on a stretch of road.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, if they did get punished in any way, shape, or form for it, that, to my opinion, they definitely got what was coming to them.
I'd say. That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that's. Oh.
Mhm.
Let's see. The thing though is a lot of these, I mean, it's harder for us to prove them because we're in the United States and a lot of these happened overseas. So unless they
Right.
give you a specific area and a time frame, it would be a lot harder to find online records of if some of these accidents happened. But some of these, it looks like they're basically just taking pieces from others and they're like starting their own local legend. Some of them actually give you names of who they think the ghost is, and that I think leads a little bit more credence to whether they're true or not.
Right.
But I mean, I would say out of all of these we've said, I would say maybe half of them might be based on some kind of actual person. The others, it kind of sounds like it became popular in some part of the European countries, and so others just decided to jump on the bandwagon.
Anything is possible.
It's like a fad. It sweeps across and people pick it up. Let's see. So Switzerland. This one is centered around some ruins of a castle. Let's see. This one is by Geneva. It centers around a woman without a name, supposedly the first wife of the knight Humbert de Cholex. I mean, if you know the dude's name, I'm sure it wouldn't be that hard to find out what the hell his wives' names were. Apparently, he had
Right.
more than one. I don't know why they would classify her as a woman without a name. Let's see. The knight is the one who had the castle constructed at the beginning of the 14th century. He apparently, I'm not sure what exactly this word means, but
What's that?
repudiated.
Like, I guess, cast her aside,
Basically, he was pissed off she
divorced
didn't give him
her.
a son. Which, back in the 14th century, that would have been really all the husband cared about, was a son to continue the family.
Was an heir to the throne.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's kind of the same thing as repute.
yeah.
It's just
Basically, he got pissed off and was mad that she didn't give him a son.
it's just a fancier way of saying.
The ghost has been linked to the disappearance of people and deaths from unexplained causes. It is unclear whether such supposed appearances occurred rather during moonless nights or full moon.
There we go. Full moon
However,
again.
it is undisputed that Christmas Eve is said to be her preferred timing. On some occasions, the whole castle and its former inhabitants were reportedly resurrected in its old glory for the night. La Dame Blanche herself is rumored to be of a striking beauty and wearing a diadem.
Which, for those of you that don't know, that's basically a tiara.
A tiara. And if he was a knight that was wealthy enough to have his own castle, then he was probably like some kind of minor lord or something.
Right.
Let's see. In a version from 1870, which was published in 1902, a gentleman told them he went out to the castle ruins on Christmas Eve as a 16-year-old during the French occupation of Geneva at the beginning of the 19th century to shoot some animals for dinner with his widowed and impoverished mother. He was hit by an ice-cold breath of air, which made him shudder, his blood clot, and his hair stand on end. In the darkness, a white shadow came out of the tower, uttering hollow groans. It touched him and disappeared. The young man tried to flee, but could not lift his feet from the ground. While the white lady rewarded his commitment to his mother with a treasure of gold and silver, she punished his wealthy and greedy relative 1 year later in a deadly way by tricking and locking him into the vaults.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's I guess it must have been another, like maybe a brother or a cousin or something. It couldn't have been a father because the mother was widowed, unless she remarried.
Mm.
Let's see. A dirt road through the fields next to the ruins is named Chemin de la Dame Blanche. In addition, a street about 1 kilometer to the north of the ruins bears the name Chemin de la Dame. Some 2.5 kilometers to the south is another street. So apparently they've named all kinds of street and stuff around this castle after the woman in white. A neighboring town apparently still bears the name of the family from the first lord of the castle. Let's see. In late September 2019, the Geneva Chamber Orchestra performed a series of 5 concerts in the inner court of the castle ruins. Apparently a collaboration by 4 of the Geneva-born or based artists included a video installation and was titled, basically it translates to "Who is Afraid of the White Lady?" So
Let me try it.
it might be possible to look up this video and actually be able to,
Down lunch. That's how
yeah.
you say it.
We think.
But that's kind of cool. If you take the actual spelling in its native language, you might be able to actually look up the video and be able to see parts of the ruins from
I
when they
think we
did
should
their
see if we can
concert.
find that video.
Yeah.
So maybe when we do some background like stories to see if some of these were even real, that might be something we can get a little bit more perspective on and include.
Yeah, probably.
Let's see. So for Thailand, it's just a couple sentences. There is a story of teenagers going into a deserted house in a suburb of Bangkok to look for ghosts, and afterwards they died from accidents. In each case, witnesses claim to have seen a mysterious long-haired woman in a white dress. A medium claimed that this was a vengeful spirit named a Dao. Looks like England has a pretty long history with white ladies.
Of course they do.
13 tales
It's England.
within England. So,
Insert joke here.
yeah, it looks like England's got about 13
We're
of
England.
them.
We have the same ghost studio, except we have to be a little snootier about it. Remember, Pinky? I can pick one of them. I'm Irish. They know better to mess with me.
Let's see. Couple of different castles, which I mean, in England that's fairly common. There's all kinds of castles, and
Almost every castle in England's haunted.
I mean,
Who would be
1,
surprised
2,
about that, really?
3,
No one at
No,
all.
4. Yeah, there's even just in this little section that has on the England ones, there's mention of like 13 different tales just within England about white ladies, and at least 4 of them that they give brief descriptions on happen around castles.
My point.
So in Wales, the woman in white is most commonly seen at Colin Gaeth, which is Welsh Halloween. She was often evoked to warn children about bad behavior.
It's not like she's like deadly. She's like, don't do that.
See, a couple of these talk about treasure, like and that's definitely interesting because they also apparently in Welsh they associate her with restless spirits guarding hidden treasures. So, I mean, that's something I've never really heard of till now. But the Welsh and the one in Geneva and some of the ones in England apparently talk about some kind of treasure being involved.
Well,
in
from what I've
vaults.
gathered from all this, a majority of the white ladies aren't even dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very mixed bag if it's a dangerous or not. It's
Right.
depending on.
It doesn't seem like a lot of them are really that dangerous. They just pop up.
Right.
Right.
I'll be right back. We'll get.
Okay.
Alright, let's see.
And like that, the Loki has disappeared.
He'll be back. He's like one of these ghosts. He'll just pop up.
I should
let's
just come over and hide with my
see.
camera one day and act like I'm like from National Geographic or something and like filming a documentary on the Loki.
Be the cow hunter. You know, you're looking for an...
Watch as the Loki sits at his computer screen for hours on end, looking at memes that, quite frankly, don't make sense.
It's like you know him. Anyway,
I would hope you would know him somewhat.
let's see. United States of America. This should be the last part of the Wikipedia page. There's a park. Durand Eastman Park in Rochester, New York. Also known as the Lady in the Lake. The 19th century white lady wanders the park area, obsessively looking for her daughter's body. So there's another one where it's basically the woman looking for a child. Apparently the daughter was slain by a boyfriend. The legends is that she was slain either by a boyfriend or a group of hoodlums, depending on the story you hear. And then the white lady either killed herself in grief or died alone and heartbreaking. So
That's so sad.
I mean, if the daughter was killed by a boyfriend, she'd be the one more likely to come back as a white lady ghost.
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay, this one is Virginia. The Lady in White, or the White Lady of Avenel, is the most commonly reported apparition at Avenel, which is in Bedford, Virginia. The apparition is thought to be Mary Frances Burrell of the Burrell family of Virginia. Legend has it she stayed on the front porch waiting for her husband to come home from the Civil War, but he never did. Yeah, so that's I can hear you purring from here, kitty cat.
Yuki!
The mic might even be picking that up. He is loud.
Yeah, he is. Wanted to see
Yeah,
Daddy.
I can't hear it through the mic.
Wanted to see Daddy.
Hi, baby.
Yeah.
I told you, they're daddy's kitties.
Wanted to see Daddy.
They love daddy more than they love me. That's for damn sure.
The little marshmallow.
The toasted marshmallow.
He can't decide if he wants to jump down and play or he wants to stay with him.
A little of both.
Well, you can keep going. I got
Hi,
him.
baby.
I got him.
Hi, baby.
The episode's been taken over by cats.
Right?
Where's Luna?
Probably
He's
hiding.
a pretty boy. He's a pretty boy.
I definitely hear that in my headphones. I heard that purring. Good. Heard that purring.
He just wants attention.
Yes, he does.
Oh, hey, they're talking about the Union Cemetery.
There you go.
So, Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut has reported sightings of a white lady since the late 1940s, said to haunt the nearby Stepney Cemetery in Monroe, Connecticut. Oh. Hi, baby.
Yep, Yuki has taken over.
It's my show now.
He really has.
It's my show now. Yeah.
Aww.
Kitty.
I got you. Don't worry, buddy. I got you.
Let's see. Here it even talks about the one in Pennsylvania. The White Lady of Whoopsie. I guess that's one way to shorten that damn mountain's name.
That's one way to do it.
Let's see. Yarmo, California, at the Calico Ghost Town.
Down he goes.
Don't headbutt my bad foot. Fremont, California, there are 2 instances of the White Lady legend. One known as the White Witch, and the other simply known as the Prom Dress Girl. Both legends have ghost sightings in the Niles Canyon area. White Witch story is about a woman named Lowry. She was one of the first people in the area killed in a horse carriage accident in the early 20th century. People claim to have seen her in a cemetery in the area with strange lights. Can see her walking the ridge between the Niles Hollywood style sign and the canyon. Prom Dress Girl story is about a high school girl who gets into a car accident on February 26th, somewhere around in the late 20th century. Sightings of her claim she wears a white prom dress and tries to hitch a ride from passing by vehicles on the Route 84 highway between Fremont, California and Sunol, California. And then, of course, in Dallas, Texas, at White Rock Lake Park, it is reported that the ghost of a 20-year-old looking girl known as the Lady of White Rock Lake, she's described as wearing a water-soaked 1930s evening dress, appears at night along the roadside of East Lawther Drive. Witnesses claim the phantom asks to be taken to her home on Gaston Avenue in Dallas before disappearing in the car during the ride and leaving behind a waterlogged car seat. Legends claim the woman to be a drowning victim from a boating accident in the 1930s. And apparently, reports of ghostly encounters were published in the newspaper in the 1960s.
You don't eat the mic.
We're gonna have to try to find those articles.
And that is the end of the Wikipedia. So, I mean, it's definitely interesting. So yeah, I mean, the White Lady spans all across to the U.S. You know, up in New York. Then of course you've got down in Texas. You've got the one Wisconsin. There was the one we talked about from North Dakota. 2 of them in California.
Pennsylvania, Connecticut.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. So I mean, she's all over the U.S. and I mean, really, she's all over the world.
Right, yeah.
And there could be other places where they have legends of them. They're just not as big and as like spoken about, that weren't even picked up by Wikipedia.
Well, I did find something on La Miranda, and it's Mexican, and it says all over Mexico in the southwest, locals tell tales of a woman named La Llorona. She's a woman dressed in all white, hands out by a nearby river, and is usually heard crying and weeping for her children. While she seems innocent from far away, those who get too close will hear a deafening scream. Children will have their souls taken away, and most who see her meet a terrible fate shortly afterward. There's definitely another. There's definitely one she's also called the Weeping Woman too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, there could be, even though when we started this, we were talking about all the places that they have the legends, that it's recorded. And, we were mentioning how, like, Mexico and South America didn't seem like one of them. I mean, this obviously disproves that. You just found an article where down there in Mexico they had her. So, I mean, it could be that it's not that they don't span the other continents that we didn't mention. It could just be that they're not as widely recorded, and so they're not really known about.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I mean, some of these we've found enough facts that we actually could do some more digging into it. And so that is something, I mean, not next episode, of course. We might give it a little bit of space in between them.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that would make a nice little follow-up episode, to see if we can find any more information on these, to see if we can prove or disprove
Right.
the sightings.
Yes, that sounds like what we should do.
You really are a spoiled little boy.
Aw. Yuki has taken over.
Oh yeah, he made this his show while you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
He's been
Truly
craving
Yuki.
attention today.
Yep.
But as long as he's behaving, that's fine. Isn't that right, baby? Yes. As long as he's being good.
Well, one thing I must say is some of the earlier stories and the time frames they took place, you didn't just meet somebody, take time to get to know them, eventually get engaged, married, whatever. A lot of marriages during that time were arranged.
Oh yeah, a lot of them were arranged by the parents.
Or if you were royalty of some sort, you had to marry somebody else of royalty of
Mhm.
equal status.
It was basically a business proposal when you really get down to it. What was going to benefit the family the most?
Exactly. So it's kind of understandable that there were unhappy marriages, and at that time it was like the men, what they said goes.
Yep.
So a lot of it's understandable that they committed suicide or were killed because they couldn't produce an heir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people back then were dumb.
Oh, they're still dumb today,
Oh, I know.
just for different reasons. Oh. Look at Yuki.
Taking over my show.
I know.
I did feed them before we started this, but he
Rotten.
might be hungry
You're
again.
rotten. He's like, I know, Daddy. I know I'm rotten.
Yes, he is.
But we definitely found a lot of information.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was tough.
A lot of it had enough I got you, baby. A lot of them had enough of the same facts that we can definitely get a basis or a theme for them. A lot of them took place along roadsides. A lot of them say that these were women who were dressed all in white. Pretty much every one of them had long hair. Let's see what else. About 2/3 of them say that, they either died in childbirth or, were killed by what was essentially a spouse. The other third of them were basically women who were unhappy because of one or those other reasons and killed themselves.
Right. He's just having a ball.
My finger is not edible.
He's gonna try.
He says, well, darn it, Mom, feed me.
I did feed them before we started.
Oh, the princess is laying down over there.
They're still teething.
If you're gonna bite somebody's finger, bite Daddy's. Daddy can take more. There you
But
go.
we will, I think we'll go ahead and leave this off here if everybody's cool with that.
Yeah.
That's
I
fine.
can't really think of anything else to say about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we will have to come up with our next topic. I'm not sure if there's anything specific that we wanted to do.
I don't have anything right off the top of my head. I've been preoccupied lately.
I was actually thinking of staying on witch trials, but that's up to everybody else.
What do you think?
How do you guys feel about that?
I don't have any problem with
That's
it.
fine by me.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff to that.
Makes it easier on me not having to figure out the topic.
That probably will have to be more than one episode.
Yeah,
Because
it might have to be.
Yeah, we might have to break that into specifics, like maybe most notable witches or, whatever in one and something else in another.
If you're looking for your sister, she's right over there.
No, he
Yeah.
wants daddy.
You want daddy? Oh, you just want daddy.
Oh, I'm Dad.
Daddy.
He's done with me.
It's like I love daddy now.
But yeah, so I guess next week's episode will be Salem Witch Trials.
Okay.
I think daddy is gonna kill you. We'll go ahead and leave it here for today though, and if you guys have any questions, comments, something you want to see us do specifically, like I said last time, just go ahead and leave a comment.
If you want to see the monsters more.
Yeah, if you guys want to see our little monsters more.
I think everybody's going to want to see the monsters more.
Yes, they're adorable, and they know it.
Alright, I guess that's my cue, huh?
Mm-hmm. That is your cue.
Alright, well, thanks for joining us for another episode of this podcast. Again, you can hit us up on Twitter, either my personal one or the one for the podcast itself. It's also a Facebook page, goes by the same name. So I guess until next time, we will see you through the doorway.
Bye.
See you later.
Good night, guys.
Say bye,
Yay.
Yugi.